Hey guys, well, when I went to Earl's Court, I wasn't expecting to go down this particular rabbit hole. I was basically just time filling. But I was just so overwhelmed by the claustrophobia of these massive mansion blocks that are just built so closely together and in a ridiculous amount of time. So between about 1840 and 1900, which is 60 years, which seems like a long time, but I don't know about that when you look at what's going on. They built, not just Earl's Court was built, at the same time there was building work going on all over the rest of London. So up until about 1830-40, it was an estate. It was a collection of estates, Earl's Court. It was countryside. There were farms, there were lots and lots of market gardens, which is another London narrative. These market gardens, they were overflowing with flowers and vegetables to feed. They must have had quite a lot, because everywhere had market gardens. So, you know, everybody must have been extremely healthy. But that apart, this was 200 years ago. Nothing there. There's Earl's Court, just there, in the middle of this sort of expanse of nothingness. I'm having a hell of a job saving this today, to the point where I've had to take the microphone out and I'm just narrating it onto my phone. So they had these important houses were there. Normand House, the Hermitage, Earl's Court House. There was also a farm on the site of the railway station, and there was a waterway called Counters Creek, and they made it into a canal, which was built by Lord Kensington, and it opened in 1828. But it wasn't a very good success, and they filled it in and made a railway line. And that's another thing. I think they did that a lot. So then we've got another map here. Here's Earl's Court, farm. Little farms on here. And in about, I think it was 1887, some guy bought up a whole pile of land and made the Earl's Court Exhibition Centre. And it was originally some sort of like huge arena where Buffalo Bill Cody put on displays for people. And I think this is one of the beginnings of the American West story, because they put on all these cowboys and Indians, Native Americans, sorry, shows with guns and wagons and all that sort of thing. And this is the arena that they did it in. Now I can't get rid of this cookie thing, but it should go up and down so I can show you this. So this is the arena where Wild Bill had his shows. I don't know what this is. I don't know. Maybe something to do with the railway. But when you start to look at this, I know that we should be a little bit wary of maps and illustrations. I'm completely aware of this. But I think this is one of those things that happened and they didn't think much about putting it out there. So when you start to look, this railway is down and these people are up, they're elevated. He shadowed it to show it's an elevation. This is down. Again, going down here. These are all down below. This is all down below, these houses here. And then here it goes up. Now, you can see down below, down below, down below, and it goes up. There's a road going up here, roads going up here and across, and a road going up here to some sort of monument at the top here, and up here. So you can see here that there's earth / mud up here. If we go back to our maps here and look very carefully at this, I can't go in too far because the text gets blurred. So we got Earl's Court. There's our Earl's Court farm and all the estates everywhere. All this land is owned by these wealthy landowners, all this. But here's a path going up. This isn't marking the boundary line of a field. This is a path going up, across, down a bit, up again, and down again. This is a path going up a hill, across a bit, and down again. These are all paths going down hills into the basin below, which has already been developed. So you can see all this, all these sort of strange boundary lines on the fields that are showing that it's up a hill. And then this one. Here's our farm on the top, and all our estates. And this is at the bottom, and we're going up. This is when a bit later on in the development, and it's still not completely been cleared off. And I suspect that this was pre-1887, this particular sketch, and they used this later for the Wild Bill show. But already you can see that they've got all this here. And stuff already being uncovered down here. So yeah, right, here we go. They've painted the windows white, and they've got like really cleaned up the brick. This is much more like it. We've got like the leaded windows still in. Go and have a look. Both of them are under. Somebody obviously doesn't want to mess too much with what's going on here. Right, I'm going to turn off for a second and go over and have a look. Check these out. This is absolutely amazing. Right, let's have a look at some of this stonage. What year is that? Is that even a year? Good grief. So these sort of allegorical and extremely florid tiles are everywhere. And if this building is an old world, I would eat my hat. And this one next to it. And this one here has been faced, I think. Although, I don't know. Absolutely beautiful looking houses here. Wonderful. Just really, really nice. And then this one here. Dear me. Dearie me. And this one's being renovated. Cleaned. This is absolutely incredible. What design would you call this? It looks almost German or something. I keep getting the word Hanoverian. This is the house that is having the renovation. Look how down under it is. And all the renovation seems to be down under that they're doing. Cleaning the brickwork, which is astonishing. Look at this herringbone brickwork in here. Top-notch place. There's their kitchen, so they're working down here. Okay, see if we can find any more pretty houses before my daughter finishes her interview. Another one here. Just spectacular, aren't they? Let's cross over so I can show you the embellishments going under here. Everywhere goes down, going down, because of course they had the equipment not only to build these incredible buildings, but to dig down and dispose of all the mud afterwards. Just looking at these again as I'm walking past. Why did they build them so close together? Is it energetic reasons? Because if I was going to live here and pay a whole pile of money to have to put up with all the inconveniences that London has to offer as well, because it's not all fun and games, and then somebody comes and builds their house like that to the point where your windows are sort of stuck there. Why do they build them so close? I mean, between this one here, old world, look at the red and white, but remember a lot of this is painted on here for effect. It's a look. I'm like some sort of like lesser spotted camera fiend to be found around. Alarmed? You should be. Oh God. And again, sort of like, I've got this big house, yeah, I'm going to build it here, like a third of an inch away from this big house here. That's crazy, isn't it? Got all this old piping and stuff up here as well. Antiquitech, balustrades. Awesome place. Awesome places. That actually does look like stone and not facing. Well, okay, I've walked. Okay then, so, believe me, this is a labour of love, this video. I've been trying to do this for about 3 hours now. My laptop is so slow this morning. I did one earlier and my voice just was like "Whoa," all the way through, so I'm narrating this on my phone in segments so that I can just put it all together and edit it together. So when I first sort of walked into this area at Earl's Court, off the back street, off the sort of, you go off the main road opposite the station, by the station, and start to walk around the backs, and typically of London, lots of mansions, but for some reason here it just really got me. So I've turned the sound down so we can have a look at these buildings. So built up, it was like being in Manchester again. And look at the restoration. Let's stop it here. And my cursor won't be working on here, I doubt. But if you look up, you can see how a lot of brick has been replaced and maybe even built up, different colorations. And these mansions are everywhere. So I stand on the corner here to show you this one here. So all of these balconies that you can see there are all stuck on afterwards. So windows there, and here they've removed them and put these coal chute things in. Look at the brickwork. Obviously around the windows it's new, the X windows, but all of this brickwork is up. And very, very sort of mucky looking. And they painted a lot of these houses white because they said the London smog had made them very dirty. You can see they painted the wall there to cover up this. That's a new wall. I did a lot of swirling around here, so I didn't put this into the original video. Right, I'm going to shift up a bit. Show you how they go down. And then these little parks that are central to all of these places. You see them? Just go on and on and on. So it takes on average 9 months to make an extremely large house these days, start to finish. A mansion, and they're high spec inside. Some of these are just really, really over the top. Now these squares are central to all of these places, and they're private squares, and the tenants have to pay a fee to use it and have a special key to get in, and it's all well maintained and all very nice and pretty, and theirs and theirs alone. And this is Bramham Gardens. So I'll stop it here because this is where it goes into the video proper. So here we are now, back here at Buffalo Bill's. It's hill up here, and it's dugout houses, or built houses. You know where I'm going with this, down here. So this is Simon's blog. I've been to Simon's blog before for various things. He's good. He's got a lot of interesting photographs. So this is at the turn of the century, and this is Earl's Court Road, looking much the same. Barkston Gardens. See how they've painted them white for the effect. Phil Beach Gardens, 1884. Remembering that they were all built in this period. So they would have been built in a 40-50 year period, which is, but they do look old, don't they? And in 1887, that guy brought up the exhibition ground and made the Wild Bill thing, and this massive, great big wheel. Now I know serotonin said these could be from paddle steamers. I think they're definitely from something. And that one there stayed there till 1901 or 1905, and then it was moved to Blackpool. More of the same again. Warwick Gardens. And they also built 4 or 5 churches. Shrine to Freddie Mercury. Missed that. Warwick Gardens. So you get my drift. Kensington Gardens Square. So lots of these squares. Nevern Square. So all of these were built in this 50-year period, 60-year period. Simon's blog. Now, up on top of our land here, up a hill, remember? So obvious to me now. He's even shadowed the incline here. This guy lived, John Hunter. Now John Hunter was a surgeon and anatomist, and he became like the surgeon and anatomist of the 19th century, 18th century even maybe. But he had a house up on Earl's Court, and it was, let's have a look, I saved a bit, yeah, and he kept a menagerie. He had a deal with the London menagerie that he got all of their sort of like sick animals and dead animals so that he could cut them up, and he had a place on Earl's Court where he kept a menagerie of lions, all sorts of stuff. So while all this building was going on, the part of London, the central part of London, was up and running. They'd already sort of sorted that out, and this was where the mainstream sort of hip things were being developed. I don't think I can find it. It doesn't say a lot, it just sort of explains how he kept this menagerie of lions, and people were used to seeing carts being pulled around by buffaloes, and he had all sorts of stuff going on. And there's a huge collection of his works at the Royal College of Surgeons, the Hunterian collection, which is basically a whole pile of dead things in jars. But these two links here about these 2 estates that were there as well, the Edwards estate and the Gunter estate. So these were a couple of estates that were here and were sold off, and they explain how they sold them off and what houses came first. I hope this is recording okay. So this was the estate when Edwards was living on it. When the 24-year-old William Edwards, 2nd Baron Kensington, inherited his father's lands and title in 1801, his estate in Kensington was entirely rural in character. Of the 210 acres or so to the north of Old Brompton Road, with which this volume is concerned, over 190 acres were occupied as part of one large farm called Earl's Court Farm. Earl's Court Farm, on the top of a hill. Down the valley, up the hill, down we go. So here it is. Now, if you look at these boundary lines on these fields, they're pretty straight here, pretty straight. And then they do this sort of thing like this. Now that isn't the boundary line, that is where it's showing it goes up. And similarly here, these strange little, they're showing it's going up, it's inclined. And in here you get a whole lot of information. The Gunter Estate, the period before, Earl's Court House. See, these fantastic houses that were on the top, I think they were built up on the top of the hill in the 1700s. It may have been shortly after the event, or it may have been a long time after the event. Got to work out when the event was. The estate plan, the spread of houses and their builders. So there were lots of builders. They sort of apportioned places out as they began the work, and they started from these sorts of areas on the edges. Hang on, it is going. So they've already built Edward Square there, so they're working in. They started here in the northwest corner, and then they obviously were going through the thing. So all of this goes on about the houses, which were the first ones to be built, and what they look like, because all of these different architects had different styles. So they were just doing them up. I think they were just like basic squares with windows out, and some of them had already had their designs features there that they could build on, or just completely change. They don't know where they got all their money from. A lot of them got bankrupt. They built loads of them. I'm using the word built here very loosely. And then they couldn't get shot of them. They couldn't get rid of them. And they said the millions of people were moving into London, and they were building these to house these people. But when they were built, they couldn't build them, and they couldn't sell them or let them. Some of them were there for 3 to 4 years without being let. Now, some of the buildings were very, very popular, and we'll look at those later, because they were the ones that I filmed. Those ones that I got really, really taken with at the end of my little film. So I'll show you the design of these houses, because they all followed this design. That is basically the design of the mansion houses inside each apartment. So if you were to foreshorten that, it would be another square there, but the proportions of this remind me somewhat of the proportions of a church or a temple, like this. You know what, you see what I mean? It's I think they were like sacred spaces almost. The temple's actually better. I wonder if it's just here where I was before. Yes! Now what it has to do is load, and we'll be away. That's the house. And it doesn't want to do it. Well, never mind for now. Just going to show you this quickly before I move on to the video. This is London Fields, and similar story, lots of fields, lower ground, lower level developments, and Hackney appeared, and it was Market Gardens. Same sort of story. And I strongly believe my house was dug out, and it was the same story here, Market Gardens. And a piggery. There were probably bits of the houses sticking out of the ground that they let the animals go in, you know. Right, this is interesting. This is Brompton Cemetery. Now, they talk about these millions of people all flooding into London and how they all needed somewhere to live. I think that a lot of these population that was moving into London were brought in to work and shift the mud. They were shit shovelers, as my dad used to say. There used to be a saying in Lancashire about shoveling shit for a living. And over here in the East End, there was supposed to be all this poverty and everybody having a bad time. And why weren't they over in Earl's Court on the building, stroke digging? Because I think there was some sort of like local pride about shit shoveling, you know? There must have been a name for them. Here's Tothill Fields here, where the Millbank prison ended up. Anyway, I don't want to play you too much of this because of copyright or anything, but let's have a listen. Have a look. You won't hear it anyway.
Place.
So there were lots of slums.
Flocked here for better.
And people flocked here for better work.
Created by the Industrial Revolution.
I'm going to turn it off so it doesn't overwhelm me. I think they were brought here to dig out the mud. So the Royal Parks Commission was formed and they built these big old cemeteries. I think they built 5, 7 of them. And they sort of like, there they are. 7 of them. And there was one in Brompton. And this is it. So it was a classic design. So this guy found a flat and featureless area in the countryside around. So that sort of presumes that the rest of it wasn't quite so flat, maybe. Here it is. Here's this flat and featureless area. Taken from quite an elevated view. I'm always scared to do anything on this in case it just freezes again. And you lay out, I'll go back to that now. You lay it out in the shape of a cathedral, as you do. They do show that again. With cloisters. Amazing vault things. I'm going to have to go here. It's not that far away. And it's gone back there. And here it is here. Vaults, crypts. Look at the brickwork. So he laid this whole thing out like a cathedral. There you go. Now why would he do that? I think a lot of people died in the digging out of this thing. A lot of people died and they had to get shot of them. And they had to build these graveyards. And this was one of them. And he got this area of land and it had a church on it or something. It had a structure on it which he incorporated into his design. He ran out of money. They always ran out of money, so it was never completed. But I've looked at a few other of these Here we go, look at this. Oh, then it starts rattling on about famous people that are buried there. Jon Snow. So this was in the 1850s, 60s, I think, when they did all the parks up. If I take it down, it might have a date. This is such a bitty video, I'm really sorry. And here it is from the air. Okay. Now, the houses that I have in my video at the end there were designed by this guy, and here's one of the houses. Isn't it just incredible? These are called crow-stepped gables, and they're German. I had the word Hanoverian come, remember? So they're like a German feature on houses. And this guy had been to Northern Europe, seen all the stuff there. He was a very, very good artist and draftsman. And then came back and became a very successful architect, designing and building these incredible houses. And there's 29 of them in this square. And they've got their own little patch of land, their own little square of its own, with open ends at each end. And I'm going to try and get back to it because I want to show you this in closing. So here they are. I was absolutely, it was one of those times when I wished I'd had somebody with me, because they are just absolutely incredible. And I was just thinking, how long does it take to build a house like this? And inside they are high quality. There's billiard rooms and panelling and mosaics and art and all sorts of completely expensive and over-the-top detail. These did get sold. One of them W.S. Gilbert brought, and when you read all the accounts of these houses standing empty, despite the fact that lots and lots of people were coming into London, these things just stood empty for years, and a lot of them they couldn't sell and they ended up leasing them out to landlords, etc. And all this sort of crazy stuff. This is a lot of this terracotta I think may well have been put on after they were dug up, but you can even see on this, even this fine building, that there is a lot of restoration in the brickwork. And there were a lot of brickmaking factories about and kilns, and they had mechanised the making of bricks by this time, but they still needed a lot of bricks for the repairs, the restoration, the building up in places, and adjacent buildings, and just normal building that was going on. Now, in my lifetime, and I'm 64, I've seen very little building work of any sort of nature, home build type houses for people to live in, apart from these grotty little sort of like council properties that they put up. I want to kill this now, because I want to show you this. So these houses are like a row of completely different designs. They're all like from different eras almost, and completely sort of hodgepodge. Now I want to show you this illustration from the London Illustrated News. I think it's 1849. It's a row of houses. They're called these slums, and they're all different designs. You see this? And the reason they were slums is because they were never done up. They were dug out. These might have been early dugouts, or never got completely overwhelmed, and people just moved in, and they were filthy. And the biggest complaint about slums was the fact that they were damp, wet to live in, infested with rats, and that's why they had to pull them down. They were just never cared for. But you can see that these odd designs, strange houses that don't sort of match, like in here, all the different elevations, see? Yeah, and styles. I think these are guild houses. I think they were merchant guild houses or similar. These are extremely old. I mean, that to me looks like a very, very old building, and they've sort of endeavoured to keep some of it going. And these styles being so different from everything, I bet they couldn't believe their luck when they got these out. And they're so close together, and I show in the end part here how ridiculously close they are together. I mean, and look at the restoration here. And there are no photographs of construction, absolutely no photographs of any construction whatsoever. I've really tried to look, and if there are, they're going to be in the possession of architects and museums. They talk a lot about how they've got all these different designs and how they were inspired by Northern Europe. So slums, they're showing that same different elevations of houses, different styles. Absolutely amazing. And if you're wondering about photography in the 1850s, they managed to take these amazing photographs of the English countryside. Now, this is something else I want to look into at some point, the English countryside, because Thomas Hardy was the man for writing about the English countryside and how idyllic it is, was, and how also it was all like very flesh, blood and guts. His book Jude the Obscure is pretty hardcore, but they concentrate on domestic problems, romances, this sort of thing, but I'm pretty sure there's more to it than that. All these farms are working. So here we go, look, these are 1850, these photographs. Look at the detail, look at this. So they were able to take photographs like this. They're beautiful photographs, but they're very staged, aren't they? They do look like real farm workers though. I come from a family that has mill workers on one side and farm workers on the other. England's very much a place of lowlands and hills and dales. So it makes me wonder what else is buried under the English countryside, you know? So these were all taken in 1850. This looks like it's by a mine or something, doesn't it? Look. So, in conclusion, my trip to the extremely built up Earl's Court and my looking at maps pre-development seemed to show that the whole area was actually under mud, under dirt, and once it was sold off they demolished all the properties on the top which had been built while the hill was in existence, and a lot of them would have been wooden farm buildings, etc., with a couple of stone buildings, stone mansions that they put up. There was also a menagerie, and then The development started in the northwest corner up here. This would have been Edward Square here, I guess, and then moved in as it went up. Same again here. And my favourite one is the Buffalo Bill one, which pretty much shows the hill's still there. So guys, it's been a blast, and I know it's going to be bitty, and I know I've taken forever, but thanks for watching. And I just have to say that I think my estate was the same sort of thing. I think it was a hilly area. And oh, also I did a video with my son's friend a few months ago where we went and looked at a grade 2 listed conservation area in Battersea, and I found out afterwards that it was on an area called Plough Hill. So yet again, I just think these were inundated, dug out. The Victorian restoration was all about reclaiming what was there before. Thanks for watching, guys.